Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we'll talk about our root words today on how the words in Arabic are constructed. So what is a root? So Arabic is called a Semitic language, right? Which means that every word has roots. Somehow the word is constructed. And what that means is that there is all the words in Arabic are derived from some common letters and some base meanings of consonants. Okay. So what is the example of that? The example is that there are three root letter words, or there's three root letters called kaf, ta, and ba. There are many words that can be created out of that, right? And there's a list of it up on the screen. Kitab, which means a book. Katib, which means a writer. Maktab, which means an office. Now, if you notice, all of these words have the letters kaf, ta, and ba, right? So here is the letters, and these letters are in all the words that appear here. Similarly, maktaba, which is a library, maktub, which is a letter, yaktab, which means he writes, katab, which means he wrote. So as you notice, it's the same three letters that come again and again, right? But the way they are used and the words before them and the words after them make a difference in the meaning, right? Of what the words really mean. Now, what that means is that if you know three letters, right, what's the root of a word, you can actually really know many words, right? One thing is you try to memorize the meaning of one word, and the other thing is you try to understand what's the root letter of that word. So now the second thing is, what's the pattern, the way the words appear, right? So what that means is that the words are always put into a pattern. And the patterns are basically like molds of you're basically defining how the letters are going to appear and in what format, right? So what that means is that when these root letters are placed in a mold, that defines what is the meaning of that word, right? So now the patterns themselves carry meanings. Now, what do we mean by patterns? Who has heard of prefixes? Have you heard of the word prefix? Have you heard of the word suffix in English? Right? So even the words in English have prefixes and have suffixes. And the way you use them is what defines the meaning of that. So let's take a look at that. So the base meaning, if you see right here, again, the root letters, kaf, ta, and ba. The base meaning is to write. Now, those root letters are inserted into a pattern. Katib, the meaning means writer. Similarly, noon alif in meme, or noon hamza in meme, means to sleep. These are root letters. But when you put it like this, Naim, it means sleeper. So again, as we were saying, there is always a pattern in which the root letters are put in, and the way the pattern is defined is what defines the meaning of it. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at, so how can we build the vocabulary with the root words? Now, a root, as its name suggests, is a word or word part from which other words grow, usually through the addition of prefixes and suffixes. So just like a tree has roots, right? A tree has many roots. And that's how the tree sort of takes shape. And then the branches come out of a tree, and then the branches have leaves hanging onto them. So similarly, there are root letters that give shape to words, and then the words have meanings, and the words are put into sentences, and the sentences start making sense to us. Okay, so that's sort of how the construction is made of all of that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So there is a word called reaction. It can be broken down into a prefix, which is RE, Then there is a root or base word which is called ACT or ACT. And then there is a suffix which is ION, right? So that is how all the words, even in English, are broken down. So again, if you convert that to Arabic, that same concept, there is a prefix, and typically the prefixes are letters like Hamza, Ta, Ya, Noon, and then there is root or base for a word. Now, one thing to understand is most of the roots in Arabic are always 3 letters, most of them. There are some exceptions. There are some words which have 4 letters in them, and there are some words which have 5 letters in them. But most of them have 3. And they must maintain the order, right? So the word, for example, kaf, ta, and ba, it has to maintain the same order to carry the meaning to write. If it changes the order, which means it becomes kaf, ba, and ta, then the meaning changes. So it has to maintain the same pattern. Okay. And then there's something called weak letters, and you folks may not know about them, which is fine, but we will learn about them. But there are some letters called weak letters, and what that really means is sometimes you may not see a letter in the word, but it is there. Sometimes they take a shape, and then sometimes they don't take a shape. That's what it meant by a weak letter. But we will learn about them as we move forward. And then typically a suffix is basically to add some weight or some meaning to that, which is typically, if you folks, those of you who know something about Arabic, you know that sometimes there is a ta marbuta at the end of a word, which is added, which makes it a female, right? So muslimata, right? Which means a female Muslim. So again, I mean, that's getting more deeper into that. But again, knowing root words can help you understand and remember some of the difficult words, right? So sometimes we even read, for example, Surah Fatiha. Sometimes it's easier to understand when you understand what are the root letters of a word, right? So let's see what we can do here. Let's quickly do some exercises here. So there are some prefixes on the screen in English. There are some root words, and there are some suffixes. So anybody, just make a word out of it using the prefix and the suffix, both of them or either one of them, and just call out some words that you know in English. So just anybody. What words can you think of from the suffixes and the prefixes and the root words which are up on the screen? Any words? Just say it out loud. Enjoy. Okay. Joyful. Replay. What was that? Replay. Rewrite. Rewrite. Readable. Disagreeable. Okay. Previewing. Huh? Disagreeable. What other words do you see out there? Joyful. That's right. What other words can you make out of it? Huh? Ties. Enjoyment. Any other words? Right? So now you can see that, as we start playing with some of those prefixes and the suffixes, with the root letter or with the root word being in there, it starts making sense. There are words that start coming out of it, and there's always a different meaning to some of those words, right? Okay. So similarly, in Arabic, for example, if you see right here, let's make it a little bigger. The root letter, for example, is Ain, Lam, and Mim, right? How many words can you make out of it? Any word that anybody can think of from those root letters. They're up on the screen as well. Alim, Muallim. Say it out loud. Huh? Alm, Ilm, Ma'loom, Yu'allimu. That's right. Right? So there's a bunch of words, right? Ma'lumat, right? There's many words that we can make out of that if we know the root letters of it. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at that in English. So think of the root letters right here as SLM, right? It can also be translated to Sin Lam Mim, but in any case, SLM, how many words can you make out of that? Okay, Salam, Muslim, Islam, that's right. What was that? I'm sorry? Yusalli, okay, that's right. Right? So all of those, as you can see, that there is now a relationship between the words and then the root letters, right? They start making sense. Now, finding the root words, so that's what we need to do. As you study Arabic, right? Sometimes it's easier to understand words as we try to find the root letters in those words. Okay, so it makes sense if we try to know what is the meaning of the root letters, and try to make the words out of it. Now there's something called long vowel and there's something called short vowels, and then the weak letters, and we will study some of that. Again, don't worry about it if you don't know what they are. Okay, it's a learning process. You folks did not learn English as you were born, right? I mean, we learned English over time. So similarly, the same thing with Arabic. It will take a little bit of time, but just know that there are root words or root letters, and the words are made out of those. Okay, so let's do a quick exercise here, and then see if you can find the root letter for this word. I mean, we know all of us know Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We read it many times, hopefully during the day, right? As we do many of the activities. So what do you think are the root letters for Bismi? What are the root letters? Basin Mim. What do you think, Bilal? I'm sorry, good. Basin Mim. Okay. Sin and Meme, okay. Anybody else? They are up on the screen. It's Sin, Meme, and Wow. Now, Wow here is the example of a weak letter, because you cannot see the Wow in the Bismi, but it's there. The root letter is Sin, Meme, and Wow, but sometimes in some words you will see it, in other words you will not see it, right? So that's the concept. What is the root letter for Allah? What was that? Alif Lam Ha. That's right. Ilah. Right? That's the letters for the word Allah. So let's take a look at Ar-Rahman. Rahamim. That's right. What are the root letters for Ar-Rahim? Rahamim, right? It's the same root letter, but do you see the difference in the word? Right? The meaning is similar, the base meaning is similar, but the way the words are placed and the suffix and the prefix makes a difference in what the word is. Okay? Alright. So that was our lesson today on the root letters.